I'm Trey with the First Dates Fix, and today I'm going to be talking about why is dating harder as you get older. You'll have to excuse the attire. I'm actually going to go for a run as soon as I finish recording this video. The weather is good, spring is here. COVID-19 will not stop me from running, so long as everyone's in a 6-foot radius. Imagine this, it's about 2 o'clock in the morning, you're around your early 20s, 21, 22, life is good. People are buying you drinks, people find you attractive, maybe you get the occasional number, and this happens year after year. Occasionally you might date or hook up with someone, and then as you start to get older in your late 20s, things start to change. The options are still there, but they start to lessen. Your friends start to get married, your friends start to have kids. Then you hit your 30s, and then things really change. Your friends don't just have a kid, they have kids. Your friends are no longer in a long-term relationship, they're married, and their friends are married. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that every single person you know has kids and is getting married. There might be a lot of people who are in the exact same situation as you. But for the most part, when you start to grow up, you start to see things around you change. The more those opportunities start to lessen a bit. Why is dating harder when you get older? Let's go through a top 5 like I always like to do. Number 1, dating is harder because the longer you date, you start to get jaded. Just like anything else. When you watch movies, I go to the movies every weekend, right? And I know a lot of you probably watch movies a lot like me, especially considering this COVID-19, everyone's watching movies at home. But when you start to watch movies a lot throughout your life, you begin to see things. You're like, okay, the hero's not really dead. He's going to come back. At the end, she's going to run into his arms and say it was always him. They're going to get into an argument, then they're going to devise a plan as to how to beat the main evil villain. Blah, 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 blah. But imagine that with movies and then compare it to dating. When you get to your 30s, you've dated so many people by then that you get into a situation where unfortunately, what the bloody hell was that? As I was saying, you start to almost negatively predict things and get slightly jaded. I.e., she's probably seeing 5 other guys. He's probably gonna cheat just like my last boyfriend. They probably don't even like me. Their parents are gonna be hard to deal with. And you start to think all of these negative things because you've been through it so much. You've been through the process of dating people 1 to 3, maybe even 6, hell, maybe even a year, and then it doesn't end up working out. So your poor heart can't take it anymore. And you start to get upset and you start to think, when is my moment going to come? Number 2, baggage. Now, going back to starting to get jaded, unfortunately, every single person you date, no matter how old, is always going to have baggage. The longer you start dating, there's 2 ways that you really start handling it. A, every single bad situation that happens to you or every single situation that doesn't work out, you start to learn from those. You realize that perhaps you weren't perfect and you start to figure out what you could have done better and what you want to do better in the next relationship. Therefore, you still have baggage, but you're directing it into a positive direction. Or B, you start to put all of that pent up anger and frustration with all your previous relationships, unfortunately, into your next relationship because you have never ever dealt with that baggage. And unfortunately, dating is hard in your 30s because you might run into that person that hasn't handled or dealt with all the previous atrocities that they've gone through in their previous relationship. It's a sad tale, but unfortunately, you're probably going to bump into them at some point. Number 3, kids. Now, don't get me wrong, I love kids, okay? Kids are fantastic. But let's be completely honest, it's difficult when you're dating or taking someone seriously who has kids that aren't yours. You might love that person so much and you want to marry them. You want to fly them around the world and show them what a fantastic person you are. However, if they've got kids, that adds a completely different dimension to the dating scenario. And that's something that you're going to have to face if you decide that you want to get for real with this person, that you want to take them seriously. Number 4, Dirty Dick Larry or Jazzy Jezebel, okay? Now, what I mean by that is you might be in a situation where you've gone from relationship, couple of months break, relationship. You didn't really do the whole, I'm going out every weekend, I'm hooking up with this, that, and everywhere. Sometimes people do. And there's a large camp of people that feel like when you're in your 20s, you should bang this, that, and whoever. And then when you're in your 30s, it's time to settle down. Unfortunately, both parties don't know which one of those people they are. So you might get someone who's been, I wouldn't say conservative, but they've been pretty consistent and monogamous with one person. And you might get someone who thought to themselves in their 20s, I'm gonna be Dirty Dick Larry and I'm gonna be getting all the women every week, right? Or you could get Jazzy Jezebel who's like, I'm gonna be doing my thing every week. It's not a bad thing, I don't judge. Unfortunately, if that's not what you're looking for, you might meet a lot of those people. Or you could meet someone who is married in their 20s and never really got a chance to do that. But then when you decide to date them, they're in a place and a state of mind where they're going around and anyone who wants it can get it. Time and independence. You know, when you're so used to having your own time, your own home, your own schedule, your own friends, your own sports events that you do every week, okay? It's so hard to let someone in that life, whether you like it or not, because you spent so long being single. Even if you haven't spent that long being single, you've dated here and there and you've been in your relationship, you still had your own space. It's still your own room, it's still your own house, right? You do a lot of things by yourself, you're used to that. It's very hard for people in their early 30s, mid 30s to really want to let anyone in, because they're in a situation where I've got my routine and either you want to get involved and work around it with me or that's it. And it's an extremely selfish way to think, but people think that way because they don't necessarily care. You know, our generation of millennials, we are very much self-love, us first and everyone else second. Last but not least, their mileage. Now, this isn't the same Dirty Dick Larry analogy that I was talking about earlier. When I say mileage, I mean someone who's dated and dated and dated and dated and dated, right? Because they're trying to find the one. Unfortunately, that affects the future relationship that they might have. Because they have so many miles on them, they might not have checked or got maintenance, right? Or had an oil check. They've just constantly run their dating engine into the ground. By the time you get to them, they're so burnt out, they might not have a lot to give, right? Or you could have someone who's dated a lot, who's looked for that special person, but they've always got their oil check. They've always looked and figured out, what do I need to change? What are some things that I really, really need to improve on? And they've spoken to their friends, their best friend, their family, and they've taken a good introspective look at themselves and they thought, what can I really do differently in order to find someone that I believe I could be extremely happy with for the rest of my life? So mileage is a huge, huge thing. You know, that's why I always say to people, it's great to date, but every now and then you truly do need to love yourself. Figuring out exactly what you need to do to find out who you want to be, who you need to be for that person who you're going to be in love with, and trying to attract the kind of person that you know will make you happy in the long run. So let's go through it again. Jaded. Number 2, baggage. Number 3, kids. Number 4, Dirty Dick Larry. Number 5, time and independence. And number 6, mileage. Be very aware of these things that you might be coming up against. In addition to that, not only should you be aware of those things, but you should be emotionally preparing yourself to deal with someone who might be any one of these top 6. The fact of the matter is that you have to be very cognizant of what's out there, because you are going to get someone who's in this situation. Life, and I say this all the time, life is 10% of what happens and 90% of how you deal with it. I wish you luck. I know you're probably not dating anyone seriously right now because it's COVID-19 and you don't want to give it to them. You don't want to be a carrier. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, you can follow me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, my website at thefirstdatefix.com. I feel like I'm missing something. And some other social media. I'm going to be uploading TikTok videos of me singing Les Miserables if you're interested in that. At your own dismay, my friend. At your own dismay. Thank you so much. Have a great morning.